Namo Amida Boots. Namo Amida Boots. Namo Amida Boots. Namanda Boots. Namanda Boots. Namanda Boots. Gasho. Namo Amida Boots. Namo Amida Boots. Namo Amida Boots. Namanda Boots. Namanda Boots. Namanda Boots. Namanda Boots. Hello and welcome once again to the Tri-State Denver Buddhist Temple's YouTube channel. This is the service for February 6, 2022. We're glad you can join in here and share the Buddha Dharma with us. Service order for this service will be Shishinrai. You can find Shishinrai on page 36 in the Blue Denver Service Book. Following Shishinrai, we'll also be chanting Juseige. You can find Juseige on page 57 in the Blue Denver Service Book. We'll then be reading the Golden Chain. You can find the Golden Chain on page 107 in the Blue Denver Service Book. Following the Golden Chain, we'll have a Dharma talk. This time we're going to find out about hydrology, how rivers flow, and something called an Oxbow lake, and how all that combines with Jodo Shinshu Buddhism. So stick around. And if you don't have a copy of the Blue Denver Service Book, well, don't you worry. Because if you look in the description below, you'll find a hyperlink to a Google Drive where you can get your own copy of the Blue Denver Service Book. Save it to your desktop, print it off, or share it with a friend, and use it to chant along here on TSDBT's YouTube channel. And in great news, we have a vaccine clinic coming up here at 1947 Lawrence Street on the 25th of February. So if you haven't gotten your boosters yet, or your young ones haven't got a chance to get vaccinated yet, come on down on the 25th of February between 9 and 6:30 p.m. and we'll be able to get you all vaccinated. And remember, do everything you can to keep others safe, and you are always in Amida's light.
中そうガゴン朝鮮がひしむ浄土志願不満足政府上昇学がほ無用公不意大接種不採ショッピング政府上昇学が市場運動妙正長寺法苦境未所門政府上昇学利欲人少年上映主凡用しぐ無浄土一生天人し人力現代公不詳無才道少女三苦妙交際集約難回避知恵言飯根門閉塞小悪道通難全宗門高僧上満足いよの寺法日願中寿期天候本文言一種解放像公正苦読法場内集中説法ししく供養一切分具足習徳本元年心上満 得意三害よ如文無下地自難未不傷願学投資最小損志願や国家大戦の感動国書天人と珍妙形南無南無南無南無南無南無南がにしくどく平等性祭道本母大心お嬢らこ
Namo Amida Boots. Namo Amida Boots. Namo Amida Boots. Namanda Boots, Namanda Boots, Namanda Boots, Namanda Boots, Namanda Boots, Namanda. Please join me in Gasho for a reading of The Golden Chain. The Golden Chain. I'm a link in Amida Buddha's golden chain of love that stretches around the world. I must keep my link bright and strong. I will try to be kind and gentle to every living thing and protect all who are weaker than myself. I will try to think pure and beautiful thoughts, to say pure and beautiful words, and to do pure and beautiful deeds, knowing that on what I do now depends my happiness and misery. May every link in Amida Buddha's golden chain of love become bright and strong, and may we all attain perfect peace. Namo Amida Boots. Namo Amida Boots. Namo Amida Boots. Namanda Boots, Namanda Boots, Namanda Boots, Namanda Boots. Hello, and thank you once again for joining us here at the Tri-State Denver Buddhist Temple for the Dharma Talk. I'm so glad you're here to share the Buddha Dharma and to say the Nembutsu with me. It makes me so happy. And so today, we're going to be reading once again from the Shozo Matsu Wasan. And sticking in a theme of both time, and now we're going to add water into our talk. So, from the Shozu Matsu Wasan, we'll be reading Wasan number 40. And this comes from the Ryokoku translation edition of the Shozu Matsu Wasan. When, into the ocean of Amida's wisdom vow, the waters of the good and evil hearts of foolish beings have entered, and then immediately they change into the heart of great compassion. Namo Amida Boots, Namo Amida Boots, Namo Amida Boots, Namanda Boots, Namanda Boots, Namanda Boots, Namanda Boots, Namanda Boots. I love the symbolism and the use of water within Shinran's writings. And you find water within Shinran's writings and with a lot of the Pure Land Masters' writings. Quite often, the thought of us being of water, us being mostly of water, which is pretty astute considering, depending upon your age, you may consist of anywhere between 70 and 90% water. Surprisingly enough, as you change ages, your water density by body actually changes. And the older you get, the less water you have. The younger you get, the more water you have. If you think about a big fluffy baby, they're very waterful. And it kind of just is an evolution. It's actually one of the reasons in medicine why we adjust saline boluses and other medical-based fluid injections based upon age often. So you'll have an adult dose, a pediatric dose, a infant neonate dose, and even a geriatric dose of certain amounts of water because we are all consisting of different water. But, and I digress, it's very interesting that Shinran and Shandao and Honen and Vasubandhu and all these people look and they use water as a reference point. We are but water. And so I want to talk about the flow of water today. And this actually goes a little bit, last week we talked about time, and we talked about different ways that time is perceived and everything else. And when you look at water, when we think of water, I think most of us probably think of water that comes out of our taps. We think about drinking water, get that Nalgene going, fill it full of that nice like Brita filtered water, all that kind of stuff. Or we think about big mountain streams coming down, this raw energy of water. Or we think about the ocean and the waves and the seafood and everything else. Like that's how we think about water. But water is both fast and slow. Water shapes literally the world around us. Water is in many ways the liquid we perceive. And I say that because in a lot of ways, air and the atmosphere kind of act as a liquid, and the further you get into fluid dynamics and fluid mechanics, the more you realize that the differentiation between like gases and liquids aren't that great. I mean, they're definitely great, but the way that they influence solids can have a lot of parallels. Turbulent flow in gas and turbulent flow in water are kind of analogous to each other. But I want to talk about one specific thing in water today. And so we talk about rivers quite often. So there's the great Ohigan story that we'll hear in March, the river of fire and the river of water. We think about all the waters from rivers going to the ocean. And when we're in the ocean of Amida's wisdom vow, the waters of good and evil hearts of foolish beings have entered and changed immediately. This is one thing that Shinran quotes quite often, is that we become of one taste in the ocean of the vow. We are the same in the ocean of the vow. And so I want to sketch a story about that and about the fact that the good and the evil hearts, the waters of the good and the evil hearts of foolish beings, that's not two different people. The good and the evil hearts, that's the same person. That's you. The good side, the bad side, it's the entire body that is our foolish beings. So there's a concept in river hydrology and geology and all that stuff, and it's called an oxbow. So if you go down to the Mississippi, you'll find these lakes that are off of the Mississippi River, like a little bit like detached. And an oxbow lake is when that's called an Oxbow Lake. And an Oxbow Lake is when a river flows and sediment, and as a river moves, you've got a velocity changed. So as it comes around, the velocity changes, and sediment from upstream collects downstream, and eventually enough sediment builds up that it takes less force from the water to go a different direction than it does to go up and over the sediment. So things like sandbars and stuff like that. So you get a sandbar that builds up enough to the point that it actually detaches this bend in the river from the river itself. And so I'll throw a picture up here of an Oxbow River, and you can kind of see where the bend comes in, and then you also see how there's kind of just a detachment, and how now this chunk of water is no longer connected to the river. And this is a common thing you'll find in a lot of different rivers. The Mississippi, it's in the Rhine. The Rhine has it. There's actually a term for this kind of lake that's created, and you've probably heard it because there's a surf company called after it, but Billabong in Australia. And these Billabongs, these Oxbow lakes, are seasonal, basically watering holes for animals. They represent like an oasis for different animals coming in. And the reason I'm bringing up Oxbow lakes, and they're pretty interesting from like sedimentary geology standpoint and everything else. When I worked in the oil and gas field, when I worked in geomechanics and geophysics and all that kind of stuff, it was really cool, especially here in the Denver-Julesburg Basin, here in the Denver area. If you go out by DIA and you drill straight down, you'll end up finding all the stratification from one spot to another, from like 100 feet to another 100 feet to another 100 feet, will be completely different because you actually have things like these Oxbow lakes that were formed by the rivers, the fluvial valley that was the Denver-Julesburg Basin. And so these Oxbows like change how depositional geology works. Interesting to me because that's my old field, but probably not super great for this talk. But Oxbow lakes are really interesting. So when we think of ourselves as the stream enterers, those that enter the stream of the Nembutsu, it's a little stressful in some ways, right? Because we're like, oh, okay, so we're going to be a Jodo Shinshu Buddhist. We're going to say the Nembutsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Even though Sensei says that we're okay people, like, it's okay that I have greed, anger, and ignorance. I have to still be a good person, right? I have to still be a good person. And in that stress that we put upon ourselves, we can alienate ourselves from the teachings. We can alienate ourselves from just say the vow. Just say Namo Amida Butsu. And so we put this stress on us and we think, I have to be a good person. I have to have the heart, the kokoro of a good person. I have to have the big heart, dai kokoro. I have to be this amazing person. And so in doing that, we can become discouraged. And maybe we go, oh, maybe temple and Jodo Shinshu isn't the place for us. Maybe we need to step back. Maybe, maybe this teachings, maybe this is stressful. And so we become the Oxbow Lake. The river is right there, but we have detached ourselves from the river. We are seeing the river in a distance. But being that we're water, in this case, in this analogy, water doesn't ever stay in one place. I'm sure in middle school geology or high school geology, you learned about the hydrological cycle, the hydrology cycle, and all that kind of stuff. And water never stays the same. Water is always moving and always changing. The causes and conditions on water make water go to different places. And so this Oxbow, that water doesn't stay there forever. It always ends up back in the river. It always ends up back in the river. And so, as time goes on, we find ourselves in these Oxbow moments, in these Oxbow Lake moments all the time. And so does geology, so does hydrology. So if you look, there's actually a thing called a meander scar. So if you look at some river basins in the world, the meander scar. So we're going to take a look up here. I'm going to throw a picture up here. This is the Rio Negro in Argentina, the Black River in Argentina. And if you look, you can see all these little Oxbow scars going all the way out into the valley. And the water is no longer in them. It went back to the river. But you can see the scars. And for all of us, our lives are like this. We're like this meander scar. We have moments where we step away. We have moments where we don't think we live up to our own standards of what we think being a Jodo Shinshu Buddhist is. We have moments where we're like, oh, I'm not the good person. I'm a bad person. We have moments where we step away. We have moments where we forget to say Nembutsu. We have moments where we're not sure what's going on. But one of the beautiful things about water, all water ends up in the ocean. And as Shinran said, we all become but one taste with the vow. We all become one with Namo Amida Butsu. So it's okay. If you've stepped away and you feel isolated out in your little Oxbow Lake, you can come back. It's okay. If you need a minute, it's okay. If the sediment that built up there that made you feel detached, if that's still there, that's okay too. The point is, you are never, ever, ever abandoned by Namo Amida Butsu. You are never abandoned by Amida Buddha. You are always embraced and never, ever forgotten. You are always the person of the Nembutsu. So we all walk around with these meander scars in our history. We all walk around in our moments where we feel like the Oxbow Lake off the river. The water is flowing forward without us, and I feel isolated off in this lake. That's life. And those are our causes and conditions. Those are the beautiful things that allow us to know when we're flowing in the river. Those are the beautiful things that allow us to know that we are truly embraced. So when the ocean of Amida's wisdom vow, the waters, into the ocean of Amida's wisdom vow, the waters of the good and evil heart, good and foolish beings, the hearts of those that are good and evil, the waters that represent us, we're all within there. So the moments that we walk away, it's still okay. The moments when we're here, it's still okay. Okay, so short talk today. But I did want to give you one super geeky thing about Oxbow Lakes. There is possibility that on Saturn's moon, so Saturn's moon of Titan, that there may be an Oxbow Lake. I have the note written down here. I didn't write down the note, but there are Oxbow Lakes even up in space. How cool is that? It's so cool. Water flow works in different planets the same way. I think it is amazing. So, in summation here, what I want to share, there is no wrong way to find Namo Amida Butsu. There is no right path or wrong path. There's just your path. You are good just as you are. You are embraced just as you are. For the moments that you're here and the moments that you step away, it makes no difference. Because Namo Amida Butsu is always with you. Namo Amida Butsu follows you wherever you go. So please know that you are always in Amida's grasp. Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu. And next time you're out at a river, look around at the hydrogeology, look around at how the river created what you're walking through. One of my favorite places to go is Clear Creek in Golden, because you can walk down Clear Creek Canyon and see how that river influenced that entire area and how the river flows across the rocks even today. To think that canyon wouldn't be there if that river wasn't there today, and that the path has changed so many times. So, take a look at the world around you and find yourself in the vow in that world. And please join me in Gassho as we read Shozu Matsu Wasan, Wasan number 40. When into the ocean of Amida's wisdom vow, the waters of the good and evil hearts of foolish beings have entered, then immediately they change into the heart of great compassion. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu.